becoming aware of you as a musician before we were friends, and then becoming friends with you.
The friend thing, we're working on it. I think we'll get back there.
if you really try.
Okay. All right. Like there's a whole part of my life that's based around sort of songwriting as service, which is the whole songwriting with soldiers thing came from that. And, you know,
tell me about that, man.
Yeah. Lately I've been doing it with frontline healthcare workers, and it's, okay. So Western Skies, there's an album and a book and a series of lithographs. I didn't set out to make a record. I didn't set out to write a book. What I set out to do, it was like, 2020, I just wanted to write some songs. And I found this Polaroid camera in the garage. I just started taking pictures. It was just something to do, and I fell in love with it. And then I was writing these essays. While I was out driving, I would write essays.
The shit you were interested in at the time.
I was interested, man. And I was just like going, how do I take a better picture? How do I make drawings around this? How do I write songs?
The Jackin Around podcast is brought to you by Lone Star Dry Goods, a collection of handcrafted quality goods with a truly unique Americana vibe. Visit the world headquarters in the heart of downtown Abilene, Texas and Willow Park, Texas, near Fort Worth. And visit LoneStarDryGoods.com for more information.
Welcome to the Jackin Around Show, hosted by singer-songwriter and two-time ACM award winner, Jack Ingram. Today's guest, Darden Smith, has released 15 records, penned a symphony, scored works for theater and dance, and authored books, exhibited works for visual art, and co-founded the nonprofit Songwriting for Soldiers program. During the pandemic, Darden also helped launch Frontline Songs, which connected musicians and healthcare workers to support them in telling their stories and healing of their trauma. Most recently, Darden released a multimedia project, Western Skies. Rodney Carll said it best, quote, Western Skies is a near perfect multimedia balancing act formed by poet, essayist, photographer, and singer-songwriter Darden Smith, all of which will be discussed today. Here's episode 21. Enjoy.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage the folk singer's folk singer.
That's not what I was hoping for.
The folk singer's rock folk singer, Darden Smith. Let's jack around.
Yeah, I'm super busy. Can we make this fast? I mean,
oh yeah, we can make it real fast. I'm sure you'll make it really fast.
yeah, I won't say much. I'll turn this off though. I get so many calls.
Sell, buy, sell.
No. Free, more free. Yeah.
Can you, will you?
Yeah. If we send you this, let me turn this off. Jack, it's great to see you.
No, I'm the host.
I got a few questions I'd like to ask you.
I'm the host.
No. I came a long way.
That's the camera.
Yeah. Is Jack your real name, or is it Jackson, Jacob?
It's Jack.
Well, is it Weldon? And you just decided to go with Jack?
It's Jack.
It's Jack. Yeah.
My grandfather's name was Jack.
Really?
My other grandfather's name was Owen.
Should have gone for that, man.
I love Owen.
Owen, yeah.
But Jack's suited me well.
One of my grandfather's name is Earle. It's hard to beat Earle, but the other one's name is Roper. Roper, that's a
Could you have pulled off Roper?
I don't think I could have, but it's a good name anyway.
I would have pulled off Roper.
You could have pulled off Roper. Roper, what a great name, man. Roper. Sidney Roper. Anyway.
My youngest son is named Hudson. And the reason he's named Hudson is because I was looking in the name book.
What a wimp.
Chill out. It was my third
name book.
Look, dude, it was the third kid. After the second kid, you get a little lazy. Like you're tired.
Yeah.
So I was looking in the book and I saw HUD.
HUD is good.
Okay, so you'll love this. In a fraction of a second, I had known my wife long enough at that point to go, HUD, that's badass. But she ain't gonna go for it.
She ain't go for that. Yeah.
And so
you could shorten it later.
So I said, how about Hudson? She goes, that's great. I go, boom.
Yeah.
Got her again.
No, she got you. Anyway, yeah, she got.
And now we call him Hudson.
Exactly,
We don't ever call him HUD.
No.
And when I call him HUD, he goes like, my name's not HUD.
So anyway, yeah, here we are. TikTok.
Hey, man. So I've been a fan of yours since I was a fan of anybody's. Like, it's funny to me to think about, I was thinking about talking to you and having you on here and being like, hey, man, we've talked about it before, but there are moments in somebody's life where you make decisions that affect your life, that really do affect your life, that like you go, I want to do that.
It's like a before and after moment.
Yeah, it's a real moment where you go, oh, fuck, maybe I could do that.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was in Stuart Whitehead, this buddy of mine, his name's Stuart Whitehead. We were counselors at a camp,
which I want to get back to later. But anyway,
but Camp Longhorn, and we had a 12-hour off day where you get off at noon, and you don't have to come back to camp until 12:30. You don't have to come back to work until midnight.
Wow.
And we went down to the drag for, I think whatever our plans were didn't work out. Like we were going to go to somebody's house or whatever, but that didn't work out. And so we went down.
Did you go to Inner Sanctum?
No, we went to Antone's Records.
Oh, right.
Right across the street from Antone's, the old Antone's.
Yeah, right.
And the old Antone's was not there anymore. It had already moved to where it was. But the record store was still there. And he was so funny because he really believed that CDs were indestructible. Remember when that was and so like there were CDs, he was a huge music fan, and CDs were all over his car.
He didn't realize they could scratch.
Yeah, no, they were unscratchable. Right. So we walked in there, and for whatever reason, I picked up your record with Paul Piercy.
Yeah, and Roland Denny.
In that car.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And y'all were like looking like you're driving somewhere.
Exactly. So it was so old school bad, but beautiful all at the same time.
It was great.
Man, Jim McGuire took that picture.
Yeah. Senior McGuire.
Senior McGuire.
And so I remember I took a ride on first, left on wide open, back to my old neighborhood. And I just go, you can write about anything.
You can write about anything. You can. That's a cool
You can
thing.
write about anything. And I remember I wasn't even playing music then.
Were you you weren't even a guitar player or anything?
Not really. No, I think I probably had some chords or something, but in my mind, that was a moment for me. I mean, it really is why we're such good friends.
Oh, wow.
For me, like I'm dictating this.
Right.
Because it was so important to me. Like,
that's really cool.
I heard some dude singing about nothing that turned into something.
Yeah. That's all songs are that way, I remember the time that for me, the moment when I went, first off, thank you. It's very flattering. And it's really cool. It was a long time ago. And that record came out in 1988. You were like 7 at the time. So it was,
17.
17. And, but there was a night when I was 16 years old. I was grounded. I remember that. I had a really rough high school time. And
what is that?
What do you mean? The really rough high school time?
Were you into drugs or?
Yeah, I was a bad alcohol and drug problem in high school. And
in Brenham?
No, this was when I lived in Humble, Texas. So I was born in Brenham.
1960.
Yeah, 59. I lived up on Kingwood.
You were in Kingwood?
I lived in Kingwood, yeah.
And you were
the unbearable thicket, they call it.
It's like the Woodlands.
Yeah, no,
only
it's
not
like
as good.
Yeah, it's like the woodland with curbs.
It's like the Woodlands, only not as well planned out.
Right. And but yeah, it was a crazy time for me. And but it was also when I was discovering music, and I wanted to get out of my head somewhere, and music and drugs were this thing that I did. And I was already writing songs. I started writing songs when I was 10. But I remember being grounded and hanging out on a Friday or Saturday night, and it was me and my dad, and watching Austin City Limits, and Guy was on there.
Mm-hmm.
So we're watching it, and I knew all the songs, and everybody was a total Guy Clark fan. My dad didn't.
So hold on, you were a Guy Clark fan
Yeah.
as a young teenager without
in 16.
the assistance of your father?
No, I grew up in a house.
How'd you find Guy?
I grew up in a house with no music. My brother brought home Viva Terlingua when I was probably in the sixth grade. He was a couple years older than me. He was 3 years older than me. And I fell in love with that record. And from that, it was Desperados. And that led me to Guy Clark. And then there was the radio station, KLOL in Houston.
That was 100.1.
101.1, yeah.
But that was total rock.
Not at that time. This is before your era, Jack. You were still in,
Yeah, man.
And it was
KLOL had the skull.
Yeah, well, and they had that, but it was rock. But they also would play this would have been in 1977 or 8. And at that time, they would play everything from Allman Brothers to Dylan to Townes.
Oh,
rock, Leonard Skinner, ZZ Top, everything, a rock. But then they also leaned over towards the Southern thing. And so you'd hear Willie on there. But then they had this show on Sundays called Country Sunday. And that was where, 2 hours on Sunday, they played all this amazing Texas, kind of B.W. Stevenson, all this stuff.
Yeah. Wow.
And, but I remember, so I was sitting there watching Austin City Limits with my dad. And my dad's whole thing was, when we talked about work as a kid, he would say, well, when you think about work, think about what you would do if you didn't have to work. And then think about how to get paid to do that.
Oh, I love your dad.
Yeah, which is cool. So, and he was told that by a guy that worked on the farm that he grew up on, who was actually African-American, who was the son of a slave, So this guy who was basically living on my dad's sharecropper, living on my dad's farm, helping her out, basically changed my life, which is cool. So anyway, we're sitting there watching. And, I'd wanted to do different things. I wanted to be a golfer. I wanted to be a musician. I wanted to be, I wanted to be a bass fisherman at one point. But my dad goes, you see that guy in the middle of the stage? I said, yeah. And he goes, I bet he's getting paid. I was like, what? And he goes, yeah, look at all that gear and all those other people. Somebody's getting paid. I bet it's the guy in the middle. I was like,
where's your dad? Is he passed away?
No, my dad, he's living in Dallas. He works. He still works every day.
Oh, I want to talk to him.
He's fantastic. He works at Jason's Deli. Works every day.
I want to talk
90
to
years
him,
old. He's turning
man.
90 this year. He's fantastic.
So he looked at the stage and was like,
he goes, the guy in the middle. The guy in the middle, he's getting paid.
That's it. That's right up
That's
our
totally,
alley. It's
I know.
like, hey
And,
man, somebody's getting paid here.
Well, I didn't even know that you could get paid to play music. I'd never connected those dots. After that, I was like, okay, I want to be a songwriter. I was already writing songs, but this is what I want to do. And that was it. It was like, I drifted.
How did you learn
that.
you were good at it?
I got my girlfriend in sophomore. I tell you what happened is like the first time a song came to me that was bigger than me. It was like a song that landed on me.
Right. Something that
something
feels
that
like, whoa.
Yeah, I didn't even have to think about it. It was a song called Johnny's Song. I wrote it I was a sophomore in high school. And I wrote this song, sophomore, maybe junior, but more likely sophomore. I wrote it. It was about a Vietnam vet. I was probably copping Sam Stone. John Prine.
Stone?
Yeah, I was probably
Sam
like
Home.
riffing on that thing.
Yeah, man.
But it was bigger than me. It like landed. It was like better than my craft. It was
better than your skills.
The song was better than me. It was like, wow. And played it for my girlfriend.
I always love these. Like Sam Stone, for those of you taking notes, is one of the best.
It's incredible, but it's the greatest veteran song written about veterans.
It's not an anti-war song. It's just more about
reality.
What that is.
Yeah,
and it's by John Prine. So check it out.
Yeah, and but I remember her telling me at school the next day. We were standing in front of our lockers at school, and she said, "Don't play that song for anybody." I was like, "Why?" She goes, "It'll scare them, and the world's not ready for that." And I was like, I'm down with this. Like, boom. If I made her freaked out, this is good.
Yeah.
I'm going.
If
for
you
more
make
of that.
anybody freak
I'm going
out.
for more of that. So that's the first time I went, I think maybe I've got something.
That's funny you say that because I remember reading, I think Willie Nelson said, if nobody hates your song,
Yeah.
there's a real good chance nobody's going to love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the same kind of vibe. Like, hey, don't play that for anybody because
gonna
it's
freak 'em out.
not good.
And what it was is she was afraid of, I think she was afraid of, like, I don't know. There's a lot of people want to keep you down. There's a
Well,
lot
I
of
don't think
people-
she wanted to keep you down. I bet
she just didn't understand.
She's just really compassionate.
Maybe.
And like, man,
Don't do that.
normally, yeah, don't be compassionate.
Don't do that.
But that is a funny thing of how people don't want you to be your most raw self because it would scare people, and it does scare people.
Yeah, it does scare people. I think people also.
You're scary, and
It's my glasses. It's just
no,
my
your glasses are really inviting. Your glasses are inviting. But that's part of why our relationship has sustained over the past, 10, 15 years?
I met you in the late. I met you. First time I was aware of you was at Las Manitas in Austin. It was probably in the 90s, early 90s. You were sitting at the counter eating lunch. I remember looking at you going, that's Jack Ingram. And then there was some event at the top of one of the TV stations here in the 90s again, and you were there. You were very rock starry. You intimidated me.
That's funny, man. And you didn't know how much I loved you.
Yeah, I know, because you were surrounded by girls, and so you just pissed me off.
But it is interesting, like that whole concept of how scary it is to take yourself out onto the edge. Where if somebody says, like to me, if somebody says, don't do that, it's scary, or it's intimidating, then my reaction is, oh,
Let's go.
we're onto something.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And so what was your reaction to that?
Well, it took me a long time to get comfortable with that because it just was different. It was weird for me. I didn't grow up in like a family. I grew up in a great family, had a great, totally like idyllic kind of childhood. And then high school was, I don't remember a lot of it, but it was great. It was good fun. And
so were you like a pothead?
Yeah, that and yeah, alcohol
Like-
and everything else.
But
Everything
were you disassociated with your life, or were you involved in it?
I was
And
totally involved. I was totally functioning.
so you were in it
Oh yeah,
and having a ball.
I had a blast.
Yeah.
Totally
That's
fun. And worked for myself. I worked for myself, so I had a lot of cash, but I spent it all. It was fantastic. It was great. And but no, I just didn't. I wasn't. The edge for me was dangerous. I knew it was dangerous because it almost took me out, took a couple of friends out, and it was like, it took me a long time to get comfortable with a healthy way an artistic and creative edge,
Yeah.
and going to that. I knew the other edge.
Yeah,
and
I'm just getting there.
I didn't want to go there. I didn't want to go to the unhealthy edge. I wanted to go to the artistic edge. And it took me a long time. And I think I got, I was in here playing shows and stuff in Austin and doing some traveling. I put a record out, an indie record on my own label. And I learned, don't do that. And then got signed, I think way early, before I got signed, before I really had, I knew who I was.
Yeah, man.
And that was just a lucky break. And
Did you get signed on the heels of
the great Sincerity Scare?
Lyle
and Steve
Nancy
Earle
and Steve.
KD.
And who?
Katie Lang.
Katie Lang. So you got signed
Nancy
on the
Griffith.
fact, like, oh, here's a dude who's
Yeah.
obviously going to be a true artist. Yeah, that must have been weird because
It was weird, and it was signed to a Nashville. So I got discovered in L.A. I had a gig. My first record was out, and a guy from a publishing company came to see me play. He'd read about me in the L.A. Weekly, and he came, and there were 7 people in the room. It was a bill with Chip and Tony Kinman, and from they were in the band with Alejandro, not True Believers, Rank and File. I think it was just Tony Kinman actually, and then a couple of other people and me, and it was just like, nobody was in the club, the anti-club, but a guy from a publishing company and his wife were there, and his wife said, "You should sign him." He walked back. We had dinner. They offered me a publishing deal. That led to me doing some demos with Ray Benson. Ray got me a record deal with Epic in Nashville. And so then I was in Nashville and I never imagined that happening. And then it was like, okay.
Oh, you didn't?
No, I kind of always wanted
Did you think you'd be
LA,
in New York or
I
LA?
wanted LA, New York kind of thing. But,
But you've never
it
been
was
pop.
fun. No, I was ish, ish. That's been my problem.
What were
problem,
you-
Jack. I've always been ish.
No, I get it. But like, what were your, at that time, what were the bands you thought?
Oh, Jackson Brown.
If I can do that, I can
If I could do that,
this.
Jackson Brown. And, I loved.
Just one Jackson Brown,
No,
or
I
was
really
it?
dug what Lyle did.
All right.
I really dug that. And it was
Was
Wayne-
Lyle out of LA?
No, he was here. He was signed in Nashville.
Yeah.
Curb. And I guess that, and I was probably listening to, I was actually, by the time I got signed, I was way into English stuff, Nick Lowe and Elvis Costello and the Pretenders. And, but anyway, I had this record deal. It was great, but it took me a long time to get comfortable with that even. And then I was not really welcomed in, I wasn't really a part of the whole Nashville scene.
No.
At all, because right about the time I got signed, they realized that no one was selling records.
Well,
So
right
I
about the
wasn't
time
really-
you got signed, sounds like it was Dwight Yoakam.
Yeah, and I did a lot of
And
shows
Mark-
with Dwight. I did a lot of shows with Dwight. The O'Kanes, did a lot of shows with the O'Kanes.
That would
was
make
cool.
sense.
That was cool. That was very cool, actually. They were amazing.
Chestnut.
No, I never did that. I never did those shows. I did shows with the Oak Ridge Boys.
That probably didn't work out that well.
It was amazing. one of the scariest things I ever saw was I opened up. I did a lot of shows from it seems like
They would love you.
Phoenix and Southern California. We did shows and these performing arts centers and stuff. But after my set, I walked backstage and the Oak Ridge Boys were in their dressing room warming up, acoustic, just singing in a circle. It was one of the most musically on fire things I have ever seen in my life. They were doing old gospel songs, and it was like they would never sing this song on stage. It was this Southern
Right. And why
gospel.
not?
It was incredible. They were it was like this thing, and you realize there's some musical magicians out here.
Yeah, man. That's the thing about guys like that. Like what they have to do night to night
It's different than what they
is so different than really, man, like the true inspiring people they are.
Yeah.
That always got me.
Hey man, can I have a drink of water? Yeah.
That always got me is like what you see backstage is what you should see on stage.
Yeah. And there are then there are people that you are around, and what you see backstage is what you see on stage.
That's what you're going for.
Yeah. The first tour I ever did was Emmy. So Emmy Lou.
She's backstage on
whole
stage.
thing. It's a real thing. It was like this amazing. When it was I'd never played for more than 100 people, and I'm opening for Emmy Lou in Vancouver. We're going to go across Canada. It was terrifying. I was so bad. I sucked, man.
Why'd you suck?
I didn't know how to perform.
Were
I
you
didn't
not
know
ready for the moment?
I didn't know how to project in front of 2,500 people in a room. And
Did you do stuff as a kid?
no, little gigs here and there. And then
No, I mean like. So I guess what I'm asking is, so I remember
thank you.
as a kid, they would always get me to give the award to the teacher of the year
No,
or whatever. Like where you start to learn without even knowing you're learning.
how to
Oh,
perform.
when you're up here,
Yeah.
you got to be bigger than yourself.
I did do shows, and I had a couple of formative sort of performance experiences when I was in high school. There I was like, okay, this is awesome. Got kicked out of school for one. That was great. That was when This is shit. And but you get around those people and you realize, okay, it's possible to be real, but you have to, in order to be real, you have to know who you are. Like watching Emmylou, Bonnie Raitt was another one. You see Bonnie, it's like, she's just real. And then there was people that I opened up for and I was around. They were so obviously a caricature.
Yeah, man.
And even though they're amazingly talented, it's this sort of caricature thing, and they can't let the guard down. And, and they're like, then they become trapped inside of that thing. And you see, like I did shows with Roseanne. I did all of King's Record Shop tour. I did the whole
Was
tour.
she trapped?
She was amazing. She was
awesome.
She's great. No, she was fantastic.
Yes.
Rodney Crowell was the same way. It was great. I did Roseanne's tour and then did Rodney's thing, and it was incredible. And so one of the most amazing people I've ever worked with was Joan Baez. I toured Europe with Joan Baez. And it's Joan Baez, man. It's like, she's sort of discounted over here in some ways, but over there, she's like a queen. She's like,
okay, so excuse my ignorance.
And she was,
excuse my ignorance. Joni Mitchell
there's two different people.
is a blonde.
Yes. Joan Baez was.
Joni Mitchell is blue.
No, Joni Mitchell sang blue. Yeah.
Joan Baez.
Night They Drove Old Dixie Down.
Okay.
But she was also Bob Dylan's muse.
Right.
She was, and this massive civil rights person over there. It's really like the whole folk tradition thing. Anyway, Joan Baez, she's probably one of the biggest international stars I've ever kind of worked with. And I watched
Put a picture up.
And I watched her
During the show.
I watched her just be hilarious. She was funny. Off stage, she was hilarious. And on stage, she was really honest and real. And I was like, okay, that's it. People, you may not get the headline, but you have this life that is, you can build around what you do and what you are. That's what I want. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because it makes sense because it's what you've gotten. It's what you've, like, it's been interesting for me to watch your career over the last 30 years and becoming aware of you as a musician before we were friends, and then becoming friends with you.
The friend thing, we're working on it. I think we'll get back there.
if you really try.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. I mean, if I see that you really want it.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah.
But it's funny, man, like to think of you thinking of all that in a speculative or what's the word? In a way that has steps. A plus B equals C.
Yeah,
D.
I know I think I know what you mean. And there were times when I did have it all mapped out. And
strategic.
Yeah, strategic. So I was very strategic early. When I had record deals, I was in Columbia, and because I went from Nashville to LA to New York, and I was very strategic till it all fell apart. And then all my strategy was useless because I didn't have a record deal. And then I went off and I got divorced and life fell apart, and it was this massive tumble, which made me rethink all my strategy, and which made me for about, I'd say almost a decade, I floated without strategy. I just kind of did things here and there, no management. At one point I didn't have an agent. I just floated and I couldn't figure out what to do. And then, what's that?
That doesn't sound familiar.
No, it was terrifying. And freaky and free, and you realize that you need structure around. I need structure around. I need some structure.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how to create it myself in the music thing. And only probably when I turned sort of around 40 did I kind of get it together again, or early 40s, get it together again with a structure. And what I realized with that is that I could have a structure that was based on what I wanted.
Yeah.
And that was where I had these role models, such as like a Joan Baez or a Bonnie Raitt, or, I don't know Bonnie Raitt very well, just a couple of shows, but these role models of people who did it their way and it's different than the sort of there. You have to have enough notoriety to do your thing, but not so much that you're trapped.
Yeah, you have enough. You have to have enough notoriety to be noticed.
Yeah, and to get in the room.
But you didn't. Really, man.
Didn't have enough notoriety?
Well,
no.
It's funny that you're having this second act now, or third act,
Thank
whatever
God.
this is. Because, I mean, I knew who you were. And I recognized what that was. And because it was in my complete wheelhouse of like, how do you make something out of nothing?
Right.
And become this thing. But like that first record, it hit my radar by happenstance. But it's not like you were on Johnny Carson or.
I did it twice.
Oh, fuck me then.
Yeah, right. Well, no, but.
Did you really?
Yeah.
During that time?
No, I did it in 93 after Little Victories. And then I did it in 94.
What did Little Victory? Like
that came out in 93.
So
that had Loving Arms on it.
Okay.
The song Loving Arms, which was a top 10.
Top 10 pop hit?
Top 10 AC. And AAA. Top 10 AAA, top 10 VH1 video, all that kind of thing.
Hey man, you don't have to brag.
No, I'm not bragging. I'm just stating that
you can chill out a little bit.
I just wanted to.
I got a record nominated for a Grammy.
Yeah,
but I haven't really been yelling at you.
Yeah. It's a nice pin though. But then I did it. After that, I played with Stevie Nicks on the Tonight Show.
Yeah, you
hung with Tony Bennett. It was like I did these things.
That's grabbing the brass ring.
And it's possible to have those and not somehow puncture through.
Yeah, what is that, man?
Thing. I think it's
because I have dealt with that.
Right.
Like you have these things and you go, this is what you're supposed to do.
Right.
And when you do this
will happen.
This reaction happens.
Yeah, you should have gone into the accounting business or the legal business because it's a more structured thing. Our business, the undefinable is the undefinable, which is it's charisma, luck, all the pieces line.
You have charisma. I have
charisma. I have a thing,
and we're lucky.
Oh, totally. I feel like I'm the luckiest dude on the planet.
So I'm always like, I remember walking out of a hotel room after doing Conan and going,
yeah,
ready when you walk out because it's going to happen.
Did it happen?
Fuck no.
No, it didn't happen.
And you go, where's everybody?
Yeah, no. And that sort of what happened for me, the striving for that notoriety and the striving for the I guess fame thing, which is a part of it. It's a very useful. I had to learn that fame's a useful tool. It's not the end. It's a very useful mechanism, but it was killing me. And it's not that I turned away from it or whatever. You know, I'd take it.
It becomes the cocaine of the whole deal.
And it's not that I recognize, like, if I also think if someone's supposed to be famous, they will be. It will find a way. And because people love to say, man, you should have, you could have. Oh, it's like, well, I had more chances than like 98% of the people.
99.
It just wouldn't. Okay, 99. And, but it's like, it's cool. Now I see it, I'm turning 60. It's cool because I have a life and I'm musical and everything. And if it's supposed to be, it'd be, I had every shot. And for some reason, it didn't work in that way. It worked in the way that's right for me in my life. And I think it's what I'm supposed to learn as well. I think we're not put here. We're put here to learn things. And what we do in our life is like the way our life is. It's kind of what we do while we're on the road to learning these things. It's not what we do. It's not that. The point is not that. The point is to learn these things and evolve. Like the way I describe it is life is what we do while we're trying to make it better.
Yeah, man.
Like we're just trying to make it better. We're trying to make ourselves or our situation or whatever.
It's like while you're trying to make it better.
Yeah, there's this
always
thing.
coming up behind you.
Yeah, and if you don't learn it first time, it'll come back and kick you down until you learn it. So, anyway, it was an interesting.
By the way, you're not waxing poetic, man. That really is great.
No, I think it's the point of. I had a couple of really interesting sort of moments, the before and after moments that I mean, we've talked about this before, but one was I met Tony Bennett. Okay. And I hung out with Tony Bennett for a night, just one night, just like 30, 45 minutes in a dressing room. And he said to me in that dressing room, do what you do. And he looked me square in the eye, man. Cause I was like I was introduced as the young artist, you know, which I was compared to him. And
Right.
He looked me square in the eye and he goes, do what you do. If it's going to be big, it'll be big. He goes, and it falls apart. And you keep doing what you do and it will come back if it's supposed to.
Yeah.
That was profound. And I was like, that was before I lost my record deal at Columbia. And so I didn't really have any context for really what he was saying. It only made sense about 5 to 10 years later. But then I also had another moment. I did this dance theater production that was based on Buckminster Fuller. It was with these choreographers. Anyway, we went and had a meeting with Buckminster Fuller. Do you know who Buckminster Fuller was? He was the thinker and architect and all this kind of stuff. He invented the geodesic dome.
Okay.
Anyway, his daughter, we had this meeting with his daughter.
We're going to give you a minute
to
Google the geodesic dome.
Buckminster Fuller, look it up. You won't understand a word of it. Anyway,
we're going to give you a couple minutes.
But his daughter was the head of the dance at UCLA.
Mm-hmm.
And very art world thing. The meeting was in LA. And she said to me and the choreographers who were there, she said, do you know what the meaning of a working artist is? And we all were like, an artist that works. She goes, no, someone who has a 30 or 40 year career. That is a working artist. She goes, and if you're going to be a working artist, you better learn how to play the game. And the choreographers were going, well, they went like, what? And I was like, what do you mean? She goes, if you paint, you better sell some paintings.
Yeah.
If you sing, write songs, you need to have a way to get them out there. You have to eat. You have to have a place to work. You have to have if you have a family, you have to feed them and house them. And so do that. You can do this other thing too. That was a profound, for one thing, Tony Bennett is telling me, do what you do.
Mm-hmm.
There's this other woman who was 75, been around. She's saying, it's not this short run thing. Like real people, real artists stick around for a long time.
A long time.
That's when you get texture and context. And that's when, then you become Rodney Crowell, which is like the best records he's ever made the last 10 to 15 years.
You have to create the space to where you can,
right. And
where you can fill it.
And that became my goal. It's like, okay, how do I hang in there and keep working long enough to get to this, this next evolution, which you never know what it is.
This is the part of the conversation that's why we talk late at night.
Mm-hmm. No, we talk because you call me. But anyway,
I call you. Trust me,
I'm usually sleeping. Anyway,
I don't call a lot of people.
It's always good to hear from you. It's always good to hear from you.
Well, my point is, there's a reason I call you.
Yeah,
is because I really do enjoy your perspective. I really love your perspective on just what it means to be to do what we do and have all these hangups that we have as far as how many records did you sell, how many, all the outward signs of success,
the markers.
Yeah, and they are great markers, and they're real.
Well, and they translate into opportunity.
Yeah, and so my whole deal has always been, if I don't have those markers, no one's going to ask me to do this anymore.
Right. I remember seeing Jerry Jeff, like, sort of. This has been the 80s. Maybe mid to late 80s. And it was not like the golden years of his career.
It was the cocaine years.
Right. But he made this ridiculously beautiful living. He had a great income, not only because of Mr. Bojangles, but he had this performance thing. And he was completely off the map, off the radar. He was off the radar of most people. Meanwhile, he had this, he had a jet, and I was going, that's it right there. That in some ways, that's it. I don't want some of the accoutrements of Jerry Jeff's lifestyle, but so how do you do that? And to rise up and then settle back into that thing. I had an ex-manager used to call it the Pro-Am circuit. What do you want to do? You want to make it to the Pro-Am circuit where you're invited to you get to play with everybody. It's cool. You make a great living. It's cool. You get to do your thing and you can push it as far as you want to push it. But that's what you want to. You want to push, get through there until you make it to that. So, yeah.
So what are you doing now, man? Like, so from the time that you were signed, gonna be the next big thing a couple times. We've all been through that.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And then that didn't work. And then you had your years where you were like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And how do you land to now where you're making, you're writing books that my mom, this is called comedic timing.
Yeah, right. Timing is everything. Well, this is why we're in show business. Boom. Western Skies.
It makes more sense if I do it.
Yeah. You want me to sign that? You want me to sign it?
If I can keep
I'll
it.
sign it to you. Yeah. I mean, I'd sign this to somebody else. I'll scratch their name out. Is that cool?
That's fine.
Yeah, no, I'll sign it later.
No, but how do you, no, sign it right now.
I'll sign it right now.
God damn.
Copy in the house.
Huh? Yeah.
Copy in the house.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
man,
I just got these.
I'll put it right next to the song I wrote with Guy Clark.
That's great. Yeah. On top of it, right?
Yeah, so it stays flat.
So how
No, but honestly, like, how do you parlay this thing that was supposed to be? I mean, I'm assuming I can be like permission to speak freely.
Yeah, man, you can say whatever you want. It's your show. You can edit this, right?
Oh,
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But this whole thing where you were gonna, like, Lyle Lovett got signed, then Darden Smith got signed, and it was gonna be this thing, and it didn't happen.
It didn't happen in the way that I thought it was going to happen.
Okay, so yeah, and I can say the same thing.
Yeah.
But then literally 30 years later, 25,
Yeah.
20?
Little Victories came, well, the first record came out in 88. Little Victories came out in 92.
Okay, so I'm
93.
talking about 92 to
30
2000.
years.
Yeah,
30 years.
30 years.
Mhm.
Fuck. It's okay. You've aged well.
Yeah, thanks.
Like that
Thanks.
bald spot's
Hey,
way in the back.
hey,
you
I
don't
don't-
see that
hey, you
unless
know
you're
what?
bending over.
Loud and proud, Duke. I don't have a cap on.
Hey, I don't need a cap.
Yeah, I know. Well, actually, you do. Anyway.
But what I'm saying is this thing that you've grown into
Mm-hmm.
of writing books, doing photos, doing drawings.
Mm-hmm.
Do you call them paintings?
I do paintings, but to me, everything.
Do you do paintings? Because
Yeah, I paint as well.
the sketching,
Sketching and then
how good are you? Tell me that. How good are you
I
at
have
painting?
a thing. I have a thing. I like watercolor. I've never really worked with anything else but watercolor, and I like it. I love it.
It's funny to me because the paintings and the sketchings are interesting to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like I love.
I think
them.
I have a thing. I'm not.
But you don't have to be.
No, you-
Is painting like songwriting? Like you don't have to be technically great. You just have to be interested.
What you have to do is you have to put in time. It's like any other craft. You have to have something to. You have to see something first. The first part of drawing is seeing, just like the first part of songwriting is seeing, and it's listening. So you have to basically be awake and aware and be on the lookout.
Mhm.
Once you're on the lookout and you have a craft that you kind of dig, like songwriting, drawing, whatever, you're going to see more of that stuff. And then it's about spending the time. You know, I started drawing again from when I was a kid. I started drawing when I was 30. So I drew for 20 years before I ever, or more than that, 25 years before I ever showed anybody my drawings.
And what was that like when you first?
I sucked. It was terrible. It
But
was
what
like-
did they think? What did the people you
well,
showed them
people
to?
kind of dug it, but they laughed at me. You know, people go, "Oh, that's
Like it's
cute.
kinda funky.
Yeah, it's kind of cute. That's kind of cute." You know, and then, but Bale Allen was the first person that went, "Yeah, we're going to do a show." And I was like, "Wow!"
So he sees it.
He saw it. He was the first person that saw it and went, "Let's do a show." I was going to put these drawings into a book, and my first book, but I was afraid that I was going to put them out there and I was going to make a fool of myself because I'd never had any opinion about them. And then,
Wow, what a blessing!
so Bale did a show.
So you painted for how many
25
years?
years, 25 years.
25
But what the
years.
beauty of it, and the reason I did it was because it's a notebook. I only drew in notebooks because most of my life, my music, my songs, everything, it was putting myself out there in this way that could be shot down. And I was just like, eventually I just got tired of being shot down, and like that. It's not abusive. It's a challenge.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, and so drawings are fantastic because no one can see them. They're for me. They're for capturing a moment there. And the reason I started drawing again was because there were days when I wasn't creative, traveling. And I feel like as a creative, you need to be creative every fucking day. Like do it every day. Something, make something.
You're like a Buddhist. You're like a monk.
I like Buddhism. And Buddhism was my change. It was like, if you're going to do this, you're going to do this, do it. Don't fuck around. This is not a joke. It's not a joke. I'm serious about this thing. So do it every day. So when it started when I was on the road, just drawing, but I could close the notebook and I didn't have to worry about what other people thought. It was just for me. And so it took me a long time to get where I felt like I had something to
get
share.
everything by wanting nothing.
Exactly.
Seriously.
Totally. Don't want it. Don't want it so hard. You want it. And it was great. It's good. And so now it's a big part of my life, drawing, and then opening up to, like this book is full of photographs. And I'm not in the forward of the book or the preface or whatever, it's like, I don't consider myself a photographer, but I like to take pictures. And these are done with Polaroids where you have there's no
manipulation.
There's no manipulation. It is what it is. There's no, and these are not toned or anything. They're just what it is. We scanned them straight up. And to me, they're like drawings.
And it's lightweight.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen.
It's cheaper. It's lighter than guitars. And so to me, it's all the same, but it's
what is that?
That's a bull that's on the side of a wall. Yeah. That's out in Valentine, Texas. So, but to me, it's all the same thing. Drawing, music, songs, writing. It's all the same thing. And I think your question was, how did I get here?
Yeah. Like
I got bored.
What I meant by how did you get here is from growing up in Brenham.
Yeah.
And having a great childhood or whatever, and falling in love with Lyle and falling in love with folk singers.
Yeah. Guy in towns.
And being within an age group to where you weren't that far removed from that.
No, it was very real.
And then how did you figure out, I guess what I'm trying to ask is, that's such a singular thing. Like, and I'm in that
being
world.
A songwriter.
Like, yes. Like I am in that world where I go,
yeah.
I am a songwriter.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a performer, but I'm a songwriter first.
Right.
And boom, that's where we're going all the time. To end up being a multi-talented artist with paintings and drawings and photographs. It's like, wow. I always thought it was really fucking hard to do one of those.
It is. Partly it's boredom. I get bored really easy. The other is hunger, in that if I had been massively successful at one thing, I'd probably still be doing that one thing. I was successful enough to work, but not so much that I didn't need to keep fishing, keep looking around.
Right.
Like what? And also I believe, and I discovered this for myself. God, probably, I don't remember what I was probably in my 30s, where I just realized that most musicians and artists are more talented than their one medium. Like most people really have a couple of mediums in them.
Yeah,
and so then it's
they
about
also
time.
Realize how hard it is to hone in on being really good at one thing.
Right. And I don't know. I probably, maybe like a friend of mine years ago said, if you would just do one thing, you might be more successful. And I was like, yeah, but I don't really want to do that.
I think that's you.
I don't really want to do that. And also, there's a couple of key role models that I don't know. I mean, I know kind of, well, the biggest one for me is Tom Waits. So I don't know.
I think
Tom
David
Waits.
Byrne's a big fan. Like
David Byrne in a way. Ish. I mean, I love, he's
just how he's
all over the place, and he's doing drawings now. His drawings are amazing.
Why Tom Waits? Like,
But Tom Waits,
What does
because
he do
Tom
that
Waits, well,
makes-
first off, I love Tom Waits' songs.
Yes.
So Tom Waits, and then he began writing. He's always been in theater. He's always done theater, but you never knew about it.
Oh, like
you never
little
heard about it.
neighborhood
then-
theater kind of
yeah,
shit?
and then he began writing. He and Kathleen Brennan began writing. And so
I always thought that was a publishing
no.
trick.
Kathleen Brennan, that's his wife. And
No,
so,
I know, but I always thought
she
it was
is
him
his-
going,
No, that's a
"Hey."
writer thing. And
So she's
but
a stud?
They're collaborators. Yes, they're massive collaborators.
That's great.
So, but they have all these shows that they're constantly working with Robert Wilson and doing theater productions. Most of them happening in Europe, like reworking Shakespeare and reworking. So, writing the songs. Alice, the record Alice, came from the reworking of Alice in Wonderland. So he's always working in the theater. He's done acting. He's done, all these things. So he's moving out and broadening where he can work. By doing that, it allows him to dip in and out. While one thing's going, he'll dip over here. And I saw that and I was like, okay, that's a great. And then of course Terry Allen, to me is the from a Texas sort of southwestern thing. He's Mount Rushmore as far as being in different mediums and creating
always being open.
Always being open, being very, very good at the mediums. So he's an amazing just drawing. He's incredible. His songs are great. He has his vision. He makes great. He does plays. And I remember interviewing him. I went to his studio one time and interviewed him for this documentary I was doing. And he had these stations set up in his studio. You've been there in Santa Fe.
I've been there, but I'm not familiar with this.
So the studio, there were these stations set up. There were these tables, and I think they were on casters, so he could bunch them together. And he had this huge, like 2,000 square foot studio or whatever. So he had one station that was songs, and it was all these pieces of paper all over this table, and like stuff. And he's working on lyrics. This other station had drawings, and I think they were like charcoals. And then another station had paintings. And then this over in the corner, there was a bed that was suspended from the ceiling with all these big scrims hanging around it. And I was like, what is this? And he just described, I said, what's that over there? And he goes, that's this theater production Joe Harvey and I are doing that's premiering in Lyon, France. And, I was like, wow, man, he's like on it. And, we talked for about an hour and a half and he looked at his watch. He goes, well, I tell you, man, I got stuff to do. I got to get back to work. I was like, wow, here's a guy. He's probably late 60s, 70s at that time. I got to work, man. I got to go. He's not messing around. And I was like, okay, that's the thing.
That is the thing. And
So
that reminds me of you.
So stay working. And also, I really, I don't want to be the same as I was when I was in 30.
Yeah, who does?
Who does? Like, it was like, and I don't want to be singing. I don't even, like some of my songs are like old friends. Songs are great. Your songs that people want to hear. They're like old friends. You keep them around. You invite them to the party. But I don't want to only go to that one party.
Yeah, I was about to say, you don't want to bring them to every party.
I don't want to take them to every party. And I don't want to only do that. And I like having, like, there's a whole part of my life that's based around sort of songwriting as service.
Yeah.
Which is the whole Songwriting with Soldiers thing came from that. And,
tell me about that, man.
Yeah. Lately I've been doing it with frontline healthcare workers and it's
oh, you have been?
Yeah. For the last year.
Okay. So because there's a lot of things that you do.
Right.
That you can skip over.
Mm-hmm.
So Songwriting with Soldiers.
Yeah.
What is that? What has that been? How did that start? What is that?
Songwriting with Soldiers came about. I was already doing sort of work with, I was already using songwriting as a way to help other people tell stories. And that was happening in a situation like at a homeless shelter in Newark, New Jersey. I was working with kids there, like teenagers. I was working with, Israeli-Palestinian groups and stuff like that, bringing them together, getting disparate people to come together and write a song. And at the homeless shelter, I discovered trauma, about how to move trauma through songwriting, which is what we do. And we know it, we do it for ourselves. We tell our stories, and these painful, sometimes stories happen, and it sort of, we free it somehow in a song. And if you're writing with somebody and they're hurting and you're doing a co-write, you really write a song that's their story.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
They feel fantastic.
Barely, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, well,
because I'm so narcissistic.
Well, mostly people are doing it for you anyway. And then I met these veterans, and I met these veterans over in Germany. I met this guy. This one guy's a Marine named Fred Carll, and I was like, "Wow, man, what if we wrote a song about that?" And I had this idea that it was this untapped. I call it a song field. It's an untapped song field. No one was writing songs, and I'm sure people had done it before, but there's lots of songs written about veterans, and there's lots of songs written for veterans, like in honor of,
but not from,
not with, like write it with them, make them the collaborator, and use it as a way to tell these stories, which are great, but it processes their trauma. Mm-hmm. And then I got into it. And then Radney and I wrote Angel Flight.
Yeah.
That came
which is
out
fantastic.
Of that. Thank you. And that was commissioned by the National Guard. And, I was at Radney's house, and that's how Radney got involved, which he saved the song basically. And then, so it made it possible to do that. And then I just, with a friend of mine, we started this nonprofit that was based on bringing civilian songwriters together with military vets and their families to write songs. And I did that for 8.5 years. I don't do it anymore, but I'm not a part of the organization anymore.
Why?
We had a change. We had a difference of opinion, and I decided to, move on.
You were right.
It was time for me to go. Everything else, it works out exactly how it's supposed to work out, even though it's like losing a record deal. Oh my God, talk about painful.
Yeah. Oh my God, this is awful.
My life is going to fall apart. Yeah, it doesn't. You go going or you don't. It's like, that's how it's supposed to work out. If it was supposed to be different, if we were all supposed to be somewhere else, we'd be there.
Yeah.
I've
thought about you a couple of times when I've seen these other organizations take the forefront, which is fantastic.
It's all good.
So it makes sense now.
It's all good. But here's the thing. What I learned about that was that songs are magic. And Mary Gaucher talks about this. Mary and I are really good friends. She talks about it.
Mary Gaucher, G-A-U-T-H-I-E-R. Not E-I-R.
No.
I always fuck up.
I
with
before
E.
you. Anyway, whatever.
Except after C.
Except for C. And and in bananas. Anyway, she does, songs are magic. And what we do is our stock and trade that we understand as songs. To most people, they have no idea what that is about. When you put words and melody and emotion together with a structure and a chorus that maybe someone could sing along, it is so powerful. And that thing is, and so I had changed my life doing that work. It taught me so much about how to be a better person.
How was that? What was that like? Hooking up with some dude who's just a enlisted guy who got fucked up in the military, right. and to see that light go on where they're like,
it's unbelievable.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So it's incredible.
This is magic.
A couple of things that I was always within that work is that, first off, never call them heroes.
No,
never call them heroes, because they don't actually, most of them don't want that. And don't put them on a pedestal, and don't pity them. So what you want to come out of is straight one-on-one.
What's your deal?
Yeah. And avoid all pandering. Number one. Also, and then when you actually see someone light up and you've actually punctured through and you've gotten them to speak something that's really true, which is done by listening, not by speaking. You listen, let them talk, you ask questions, and then you sing that back to them. It is the most profound thing, man. And here's the other thing I really learned, it's like Radney and I were in a room one time. We were there and there's 12 guys in this room. And at one point, and we were writing songs. We were going to write a song with all 12 of them at once. And I just leaned over to Radney. I said, no, man, remember that we're the only people in the room who hasn't taken someone's life. And a couple of them actually dug it. It was the peak emotional experience of their life. Now, our job is to love them, not judge them. Love them. If we love them for who they are in this moment, irrespective of what we think about anything. It doesn't matter what we think. Our job is to love them. If we do that, we can get something done here. And that, practicing that thing in my life, using songs, has completely changed how I look at life. I still have opinions about people, but it's opened me up to the possibility of using
everybody in this room has taken somebody's life.
Multiple times.
Yeah, man.
And I've worked with, and that's a very judgment. You can find all kind of judgment.
There's no judgment there, but
no, but it's easily that's an easily accessible judgment in our culture. In religion, it goes against every, spiritual, ethical thing that I was raised with. At the same time, I love these guys. They're awesome. They're fantastic. And when I had a situation where it was like I needed a crunch, I had a crisis. I needed a different kind of perspective on my own life. Who did I call? I called these veterans. Dude, I got something going on. Like, can you explain what just happened to me and how this is going to work? Those are the guys that I call. And I still have some of my, a couple of them in particular. It's like, I got lifelong friends, and they did things in their life that I never would have, I haven't had.
Well, when they do those things, it's not a judgment. It's not about integrity or right or wrong. It's about necessity.
Yeah.
It's like, here's what we're here to do. Right. And if you're here to do this, then that's what you do.
And so what that whole experience led me to do which it sort of
COVID?
COVID? It's just a touch. And, but it's cold.
It's cold.
Takes it away. People think that's water as well, which is cool. Which is I'm totally saying that is some sanity. That's a sanitizer. Anyway, that work showed me the power of truth.
So what are you doing?
And how we should do in our work, in our songs, in our books, and whatever, go for truth, man. Just tell the truth. Everything else is bullshit. Everything else, we did that already. We did that. If some of us, we all do it to get where we are now. Now we're on the other side of like the peak, and we come down into the valley, and we come back. On this side of that valley, go for truth.
Truth is always.
It's what wins in songs.
It's always one for me.
But
the funny part, not the funny part, but
hey there, Mr. Tin Man. You talk about true. That's like,
well, that's the thing is like,
especially the chorus. Ooh, that's the truth. That's like that's the truth, man.
If you say nothing, that is the truth.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just go, oh, but it is funny, like. They say the truth will set you free and all that. It does. All the cliches. But the fact is, I think more about it when I think about shows and talking in between songs and making jokes and setting up stuff. Mm-hmm. Is that every time I've ever told the truth, everybody says, "Oh, you can't say that. You'll get in trouble. You can't do this. You'll get in trouble. You'll get canceled in today's world." And I'm like, nope. If you tell the truth,
it resonates.
It resonates. And it may make people pissed off, but you don't get in trouble for the truth.
No, you don't. And it can be problematic, but that's usually situational.
Yeah.
No, it's the way to go. And I look around at musicians and artists that I admire, that I still listen to, who've listened to for years, and new ones that are coming up. And they're always the ones that are they're telling the truth.
That's all they do.
That's all they do. They tell the truth.
There's some artists that have that other talent where they're not telling the truth. They're building,
and they're so good
story,
at it,
and they're great at it,
and that's a different truth.
Yeah, and that's fantastic.
Well, look at Bowie.
Yeah,
so David Bowie was like, it was like, which part of that was true and what wasn't? It doesn't matter, because the umbrella was true. Tom Waits is the same. It's all like an act, but the umbrella is true.
So I saw this thing called Fishing with John one time.
Totally. With him and John.
And he got seasick.
Yeah.
And as soon as he got seasick, all the act was gone.
Yeah.
He was like, "Get me the fuck off this boat now."
Yeah.
Like, I'm not
messing around.
This is not fun. I remember it was like it was an eye-opening moment for me watching Tom Waits lose the shtick.
Yeah.
And go, "Get me the fuck home."
Yeah, right.
And I was like, "Oh, good, he's real."
Yeah, one of the best things I ever heard was him interviewed on Fresh Air, Terry Gross, and he did his voice warm-ups. And Terry Gross said, "You do voice exercises?"
Yeah, what kind of voice warm-ups did you? Matey.
So anyway, yeah. What next, Jack?
Man, this is the part of the conversation that I've always loved with you. That's why I call you late at night.
Yeah.
Is that I just really love picking your brain. I love the way you think. I love the way you act. You're authentic.
I go for that. I try that. It's like, because,
what was it like growing up? No, don't give me some bullshit.
What was it like growing up?
Like, yeah,
it was
were
awesome,
you like
man.
a country club kid or?
My parents, lived in Brenham, so the idea of country club is Brenham is it's a rough one. But no, yeah, my dad ran a savings and loan in Brenham. So we moved there when I was like, I don't know, I was born there. They moved there before I was born. But then I lived in the country. It wasn't a farm, but we had cows and chickens and things like that. And it was idyllic. It was like 100 acres, in the middle of Washington County in Texas. It was,
and that was how he made a living.
He made a living at running
as a savings and loan.
Savings and loan, yeah.
So it was a ranch.
It wasn't.
He had a job, but
we had a place in the country. We had a place in the country that we lived in
because he was so successful. Like
no,
in Texas,
he got it for really cheap. He got it for
you
really
make
cheap.
a really lot of money.
No,
and then you buy a ranch.
No. He got it because a woman, the woman who had owned it forever, she came into the savings loan one day and she says, "I'm looking to sell my farm, my piece of land." And he goes, "How much do you want for it?" And she said a number and he goes, "I'll take it." So It was just this amazing opportunity that he said,
but it sounds like they were pretty badass. Like, how did you think that you could make a living or make a life out of music?
They did not want me to be a musician. See, that was so I grew up.
But all these things that you have,
what they told, this theory about, my mom was sweet. She's a wonderful, wonderful woman, but she was much more conservative as far as how you live your life and straight ahead. And she wasn't, these were depression kids.
Okay.
Depression kids. So it wasn't about risk. It was about mitigating risk. But my dad said, never worry about money. Don't worry about money.
There's not a lot of people that say, don't worry about money. It'll take care of itself. So did that come from his dad or his dad's dad?
I think it came from his dad, where he there was this thing, just work. Just go to work and don't let your expenses get ahead of your income. They were cash people, and but then my dad was like, you got to, I didn't grow up starving. I grew up, my dad had a job, so, but there wasn't so much money that we didn't have to work. You still had to, and I worked when I moved from Brenham, which was this idyllic, fishing and hunting and, the whole thing and playing
Wasn't
guitar.
that idyllic? You were a fuck up.
But that was when I moved to Houston. When I moved away from Brenham, that's when things went south for me from that.
Yeah, fuck Houston.
But it was also, that was also when I feel like that point of my life was when I was breaking free. I was a different kid. I heard voices when I was a kid. I was always different. I was different than
What do you mean
everyone
you
else.
heard voices?
I heard voices. Like I really heard voices when I was a kid. And
so you're schizophrenic.
Just a touch.
I got a touch of this.
But it's like, he's a good guy. He's
nice,
good.
Like I hear voices, but he says nice things.
Listen, I'm a fun bunch of guys. And so that.
What do you mean you heard voices?
I heard things, and when I was a kid. So,
like what kind of things? Like,
just like other voices, Jack. It's hard for me to describe it, but it was.
Describe it.
It was like you'd be walking along, and I would hear things. I'd be walking around in the woods, and I would hear shit.
Like what?
like voices, like words and stories. And I'd go, oh, you know, and it was weird. But I wasn't scared by it at the time. Scary thinking about it more than at the time. It was great, you know.
So I was joking before, laughing about it. But that is
possibly
interesting.
Possibly, but it went away.
Why?
I don't know why it went away, but I do know that it also, there's a couple of things from that time in my life. First off, I'm never lacking for story. I always have stories going on in my head. I always have like a thing. I can come up with like where it comes out as a song or this or something. It's there.
Yeah.
But then also my time as a child, and this was all like before 8th grade, of being in the woods and being in the country, walking, just being in nature, walking around. I was very comfortable being lost. I was very comfortable talking to myself because I was alone a lot of that time because my older brothers and sisters, we lived out in the country. And then, but I would be lost in the woods, but I always knew where home was. So traveling as a musician, I'm very comfortable in cities that I've never been to, or cities like, you know, I can walk across London, like no map. I can walk across New York, Paris, whatever. It's like,
yeah, you'll find your way back home.
I can find my way back home. It's like, I know north, like I know north, south. I can look at shadows. And so that was great. And then, yeah, it was great. I learned how to work hard. So my work ethic comes from being a kid and growing up in the country. I had chores and cows and chickens and all that stuff. And I learned how to make money when I was young.
How?
Egg business. And I raised cattle.
Oh, so you knew like,
yeah, I knew
1 + 1 = 2.
Yeah. And I knew that, okay, that's really great, but you still have to pay the feed, man. I had my checking account when I was in the 3rd grade, you know? And, but then when I lived in Houston, I had an odd jobs business that was my brother's first. And then.
So did you miss the country? Like, is that,
I did
is that what
that
get you off track?
I did at that era. I really missed it.
Like what kind of drugs what was that about?
At first it was just trying to fit in, but I started drinking really young too. I started drinking in like the 7th grade. It was Washington County, so everyone drank. But
Washington County, like outside of Houston?
Brenham.
No, but when you moved to Houston,
then we moved to Kingwood.
But that's when you started fucking up?
I was drinking before I went there. But then I got way off the deep end when I was in high school.
Did you go to programs or did you just
No, I went to football practice.
There you go. That'll work.
No, I was just able to keep it together until I wasn't able to keep it together. And then it was like, obviously I had a problem and I started to get it together. And then I saw a friend wrap a car around a tree.
But you drink now. You have it under control now.
I drink now. Yeah, two things happened. I saw a friend wrap his car around a tree. And that was with 2 of my friends in the car. They didn't die, but the pine tree missed them by 4 inches. That scared the shit out of me. And I actually saw the car and everything. And then I got kicked out of school when I was a senior for drugs and alcohol. And that made me realize that all that stuff is really fun, but it will ruin your life. And that was this key moment where other friends of mine, because we partied so hard, other friends of mine were starting to go off the edge. Started losing verbal skills. I saw a friend of mine lose his verbal skills. And I was like, wow, what's happening to his brain? And I was like, that's not cool. And then friends got thrown in jail, prison. And I was like, this is like really not any fun anymore. And I was like, okay, by the time I went to college, freshman, I was trying to get sober. I was trying to clean up my life so that because I like to drink everything, but I don't want to smoke pot, you know, that stuff. It's like, I want to be able to enjoy it, but I don't want it to run me. Yeah. So I just forcibly got a grip. And, you know, it's like, yeah, it's a moving target. But
has it been that way ever since?
Yes.
Like you've always.
Yeah, I don't like to be complete. I love to be out of control. That's the thing that when I was a kid and the being in the country and the hearing voices, that thing, whatever that thing is, to me, that's art.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay, that's art. And so that's what I was pursuing in high school. And that's what I was pursuing with alcohol and drugs. I didn't know how to do it without it being damaging. I was just going at it from that sort of intense level. I just didn't understand. But now it's like, I want that same out of body, sort of drifting thing that you get when you write a song and you lose track of time and you look up and you go, oh my God, or you're like on stage and
well, you just don't even know where you are.
I'm drawing or I'm writing or I'm making videos now. It's like all this thing. And it's like, you get out of your, so how do I get that space? How do I get into that space, sort of cross over that edge and get close to, stay like really right on that edge, but be able to come back the next day and feel really good and do it again. And that way I have to keep that other stuff in check. Does that make sense? But that
Absolutely.
pursuing that, and that's what I mean by like looking at people like Rodney and Roseanne and, you know, Tom Waits or Terry Allen. They are able to, they've set up a life that's functions within several businesses or several tracks, but they're able to access the edge.
Oh yeah.
On a consistent level, and because they've been doing it long enough, their craft is at a certain level. When they access that edge, it's like damn good.
Yeah.
So that's what I want. I want to maintain. I want to access that edge as often as possible for as long as I can.
Yeah.
And if I do that, what did I get from my dad? If I do that, I think that artists are put here for a reason. And if we maintain that edge and that level of craft and honesty, the world will give us what we need. So we'll make the money that we need. Like that, I don't worry about that.
There's a role that you're servicing.
Money's a beautiful thing. It's like, it's a good thing we're not carrying rocks.
Right.
But it's like, don't service that. If you serve this, then, you know, there's times comes and goes, you know, but it's like, but if you keep serving this edge and do it smart and keep everything together, return the phone calls, you know, but it's like, no, that's not a personal thing, Jack.
Hey man, what the fuck?
I'm not.
Why are you gonna throw shit at me?
I didn't mean to turn it around there, but things will fall into place.
They do.
But chasing that at a certain point, if you chase that, this edge disappears, and you don't. And we all have friends that are impersonating themselves.
Oh yeah.
And this edge becomes a mystery. And I don't want that to become a mystery. I want that to be the real thing that every day I wake up and it's like, let's go.
Yeah.
Today it's drawing. Today it's making a video. Today it's writing a song. Today it's like all these things.
And I know I think we're running out of time, but I really am interested.
It's a good song title.
What?
Running out of time.
Okay.
It's my new single.
The next part, we're gonna write this song.
No, it's my new single.
But it is funny to be so good at one part of that aspect, songwriting. Mm-hmm. And to know what it takes to be that great, that good, whatever.
Yeah.
At that.
Mm-hmm.
And then to change mediums. That's what is interesting to me about you. One of the things that's interesting is that I've spent a lifetime trying to be as good as I am at this. I have interests in other mediums, but man, to go through that learning curve again, to be viable, to be for real, like I know what it took to get here,
right? As
a songwriter and as an artist, and to be a sculptor or
right.
Or visual art, like, you know, I do things with the guitar sometimes, and I'm like, I'm not going to show them for anybody. Like, it's not up to par.
I think removing that concept of par is the way to start. I think removing the concept of viability that's a judgment idea. And close the notebook, like do it in a notebook where no one sees, and it's just about showing up. Practicing the craft, whatever craft it is, whether it's, you know, fly fishing, tying flies, you know, it's like, you gotta start.
Barksdale.
Yeah. Barksdale. It's like, he's tying flies. It's like, he's just doing it. He's just showing up and doing it without like expecting, like the visual art for me, if we could talk about just Western Skies. Okay. So there's an album.
And
a book, okay, and a
Western
book. Western Skies. But okay, so Western Skies, there's an album and a book and a series of lithographs that are you know. So it's like, but none. I didn't set out to make a record. I didn't set out to write a book. What I set out to do, it was like, you know, 2020. I just wanted to write some songs, so I started writing songs, and then I started I was doing these drives back and forth to Arizona. I was still doing stuff with Songwriting with Soldiers. Mm-hmm. And I found this Polaroid camera in the garage. I just started taking pictures. it was just something to do, and I fell in love with it. And then I was writing these essays. While I was out driving, I would write essays.
Just shit you were interested in
Just
at
shit
the
I was
time.
interested, man. And I was just like going, how do I take a better picture? How do I make drawings around this? How do I write songs? I wasn't writing songs about the pictures or taking pictures about the songs. It was just this thing. I was just pursuing this stuff. And it wasn't like, I thought after my last record, I didn't think I would ever make another album because it's like, why?
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden I went, oh, they fall together. They work together. So I think pursuing it at a certain point, you'll do something, we make things. We make it, whether it's songs, records, whatever, we make things. Just pursue your thing without worrying about par.
Right.
Without worrying about viability. It'll be viable-ish, or it won't. And don't show those people. Don't show that stuff.
Right.
Or even if it is viable, it's like you can make that judgment. Some people, they make records they shouldn't make. They do things they shouldn't do because it's not really up there. Just because you do it doesn't mean you have to show everybody.
That's right.
And there's a certain joy is required, I think, in our life as artists, because there's like massive amounts of pain and rejection. So you better find something that you get joy out of. And sometimes that joy is what you show other people. Sometimes it's just like this thing I do. It just makes me super happy. And it's this creative thing.
That's the final frontier for me.
What do you mean? What do you mean?
To do things without the hope or hint of reflection, a reflection of like to do things. That's tough for me. Like
right.
when I write a song, I want to play it for you.
Right. Well,
so that you can say how great it is.
But that's your magic. That's your magic. So I can say how great it is.
Well,
yeah. So you can
get, or I can gauge
you get a return.
I can gauge your return.
Right.
Like, but where I can go, I played you that song.
Yeah.
You didn't love it as much as I thought you would love it. It must be wrong. Let me go fix it.
Yeah.
Like there's a thing.
There's nothing wrong with that. But
beauty. It's beautiful to think that you could make something. That's the goal, is to make something without
that,
the expectation of return. And go.
Yeah, I think that's craft. I think that's where just working on craft comes up. Just write the song. Just write the songs, or do the drawing, or take the picture. Just take the picture because it's like it gets you on. It gets you excited. It's like
it makes you want to paint the next picture.
And so, and what happens is you do like a ton. I mean, I'm sure you write some bad songs.
Never.
Really?
Never.
Really? Let's talk about truth. Let's just talk about honesty. Let's just but you do that stuff.
My mom's never been naked in her life.
Well,
not what I remember.
There was once anyway. But doing that thing, but it's like just doing those things, being willing. I tell people when I'm doing songwriting workshops or whatever, which I don't do a whole lot of. It's like, first off, be willing to write bad songs. Be willing to do bad stuff. Be willing for it to not be perfect, and then you'll get closer to perfect. But if you're not willing for it to suck, that's the edge. That's a risk. That's a risk.
If you don't know what sucks,
exactly,
you can't
man.
know what's perfect.
And so be willing to do that, and be willing to go, that's fucking awful. I mean, how many times have you sit down and you write a song with Gary Nicholson, and he'll tell you the stories about, oh man, I was here with Scotty, whatever, and da-da-da-da. We had the three of the best songwriters in Nashville. We looked at that song, was terrible, man. I wrote a song with Paul Williams one time. Wrote a song with Paul Williams. It was awful. This is Mr. Rainbow Connection. This is the dude. It was so bad. And we both laugh about it now, how bad our song was. It was the best day. It was one of the most amazing experiences of my life. So the day was not about writing a hit song. The day was about hanging out with Paul Williams, which the song just got me in the room.
Yeah.
So that to me is remembering, like, I don't think we're put on the planet necessarily to get acclaim. I think we're put on the planet to work and do our work. And when we do that, the possibility of more acclaim is there. You do that thing and you'll find it at the time and way that you're supposed to. Am I boring you?
No, my mind. No, really, you're not boring.
No,
me
it's.
at all.
I think it's. And you look around at people.
I think it's funny how I think about that and I go, yeah, acclaim.
Yeah.
That's a funny thing. Like acclaim for me is about justifying what I do. When I get acclaim, when I get nominated for a Grammy, which I have,
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah, right.
or an ACM award or whatever, acclaim
won
is
those.
always about buying time.
Buying time. What do you mean?
Like, I don't have to justify, I don't have to explain why I'm doing this. Because this outside source
Has said Jack.
Has
Y'all
said-
need to leave Jack alone for a
has
while.
said, you're good. You can do this. And I go, see?
I told you. That's
And
why I didn't go to the grocery store yesterday.
that's right. And so that's what acclaim is for me. That's
Yeah.
what fame is. That's what all of that stuff
Yeah.
is just buying me time to be left alone.
Yeah. You know, we were on the phone. You and I were on the phone about a week ago, and we were talking. And you asked me what I was working for. I forget exactly how, but it was like I thought about it. It was like out of the no. I didn't even think about it. It was like freedom. It's like freedom, which is basically your thing of time. I just want more freedom when nobody hassles me. So during the pandemic, it's weird to say this. I'm not the only person that said this, but I kind of dug it because I didn't have to go anywhere.
I didn't have to go do
I didn't have
gigs.
to go anywhere. I
don't do
couldn't
meet and
leave the
greets.
house. And the peak for me was when I actually got COVID. I had doctor's orders for my family to leave me alone. As a matter of fact, you can't come in the room.
I'm quarantined.
I'm quarantined. And I had the most amazing week. I felt like shit. I don't remember everything.
Right? You never felt guilty for not getting
I
up?
did not feel good. I was in bed all day working all day. I was like, it was amazing. It was like this, but it was like, that's what I want as I get old. So I'm turning 60. So I'm trying to think about what do I want when I'm 70? And then what do I want when I'm 80?
Yeah, we got 20 years
I got
left.
20 more years left. I want more and more freedom. Say I got to have the economics to make it work, but it's like I want more and more freedom that's not involved and doesn't revolve only around a guitar in a case going around a baggage carousel in some city. It's like
absolutely.
It's like I want to do that.
I love it.
But it's like, how do I also create this other thing that actually lights me up? Because a lot of what I do, other people don't want. They look at that like the songwriting in service of other people. A lot of people go, that's weird. That is weird. I happen to really dig it. And so how do I do more of that? Because this is what I dig. There's a lot of different meters. A long time ago, in 99, I did a symphony.
I remember
With
that.
the Austin Symphony. Okay, I got commissioned to do this symphony. It was like, and I don't even read music. So it was, talk about pushing boundaries. It was way out there for me. One of the percussionists in this symphony, who was an older guy, he was probably in his 70s. He was a teacher. He came up to me on the second night of the symphony before we started, but he and I were the first people at the theater. And he said, this has been an amazing experience. He goes, I heard you describe yourself as a songwriter the other day. He goes, I'd like to invite you to think of yourself as a musician.
Yeah.
I was like, what do you mean? He goes, well, if you were only a songwriter, we wouldn't be doing a symphony.
Right.
There would be no need for me. He goes, you're a musician. You have created this thing. That's music. It's not songwriting.
Yeah.
And it was like, he's not negating writing songs. He's saying, open the blinders up.
Yeah.
Open the aperture of what you define. And then it's real freeing. It's very freeing because I do all these kinds of things, so I don't, when people ask me what I do, like, I don't say songwriter anymore.
What do you say? Musician?
Artist.
Artist. Yeah, you are.
Artist. I'm
It's
an
funny
artist. I
because,
do
like,
these things, but I'm an artist.
Those musicians that are in symphonies, they read music.
They read music.
And they're fantastic at it.
Yeah.
But if you play them a new song, like, hey man, I just wrote this, play something cool. They go, I don't do that.
It's hard for them.
And so I understand where they go, hey man, you're a musician because
I've entered.
you're creating something that I couldn't play
Right.
unless you were here.
Right. I had to get, and it was a very fascinating thing because it showed, like in Peter Bay at the time, the conductor, he said, I said, what'd you think about it? He goes, well, half the people loved it and half the people hated it. He goes, that's really good.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Hate's good.
Hate's okay. Yeah. I mean, yeah. But I just think it's like opening up that thing of what you do, because that's the interesting people. The interesting people are out there. The people who have this broad thing. They may not be the most famous, but you can make a great living. I mean, look at the film business. The film business is full of these very eccentric people with this broad span of creativity. The camera guys, the makeup people, all these people, they have these massive,
And they're fantastic.
They're amazing. And the camera guy is maybe he's a painter. You know, they're really good. They may or may not be known or whatever, but they paint.
Mm-hmm.
Herb Alpert's career is pretty fantastic if you look at a role model. Great musician. He also ran a record label, A&M.
Oh, he did?
Albert and Moss. he started A&M. I mean, he was A&M. He signed the Police. He signed Cat Stevens. He signed the Carpenters. He signed all those people across the board. But he's also an amazing painter and a sculptor. Like make these massive sculptures. He doesn't do it to sell. I don't think he sells his stuff, but he's an amazing painter. And his thing is like, well, yeah, I got this thing. If you got the thing and you don't use it, what a ripoff.
Yeah, man.
What a ripoff.
I remember Christopherson said that, forget his favorite poet, but basically like if you find what you're here on this earth for and you don't use it, that's going to hell.
That's right. And it's also, I think it's a crime. I think it's a crime to have a gift and not give it. That's criminal. And you should not be able to do that.
Yeah, like just listening to you, listening to my buddy Todd Stein, listening to Jerry Jeff, Bruce, all the friends that we have. This earth without that talent,
what a bummer,
being shown is like, why be here?
Well, I think about like a guy named like Jerry Jeff. That's why we all do what we do. Texas guys, especially.
Yeah, man. And
all of us. Yeah.
I never really got into it with him. I know he loved Ramblin' Jack and
he was a folk singer, man. He was a folk singer.
But yeah, like what made him go, oh, I can go make up an entire existence?
I have no idea. That part of it, I never heard.
Like he just made up an entire existence.
Yeah, he liked it. He was, he was a vaudeville guy in a way, like Ray Benson. They're vaudeville.
I think he came from a relatively conservative family.
I don't know. Yeah.
He played basketball in high school.
Yeah, swam. Hondo Crouch taught him to swim.
Well, Hondo
was a swimmer.
I've sat in Hondo's butt cheeks at Camp Longhorn.
That's interesting. Yeah.
He made this swim, they call it swim bay.
Oh yeah.
And when the cement was drying, he sat down.
Wow.
And,
yeah.
And that's how I learned about Hondo, and that's how I learned more about Jerry Jeff.
Yeah.
And the guy who started the camp I was at was a guy named Tex Robertson, who the swim center at UT is named after him.
Yeah, right.
Anyway, all of Hondo's bits. One time I go, hey, Tex, do you know Hondo? He goes, yeah, he's still all my shit. Like we're all the same.
That's great.
Hey, man, thank you.
Pleasure is ours.
This has been a pleasure.
Yeah, you bet.
I mean, I love talking to you on the phone, and I love being with you at dinners, and I love being with you just in general, but to really get to dig in.
Yeah, you bet. I'm grateful. And you can keep the book too. I already signed it to you, so you have
Western Skies.
Yeah. And our single's coming out. Our song Miles Between's coming out.
Yeah, I'm going to record
this week.
I'm going to record it this week.
Yeah, really.
I'm going to go record it with a real recording.
A real band? You're going to put a real band
like
on it?
Band.
Not my band. Not our band. Yeah.
JJ's playing drums.
Oh, he was going to play on mine.
John Mike's playing bass.
Is Charlie playing?
No, he
played
with
on
Terry
record.
Allen.
Yeah.
So he can't do it. But it's going to be good.
That's fantastic. Where are you cutting at?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Those are the things I don't.
You don't tell people that. You don't want me hanging around.
No, I just
well, see, if I was doing it, I would have done it that way. You don't want people like that doing it.
the thing about me is like I just never care where we record. I would.
Oh, really? Who's producing it?
Me, I guess.
Oh, right. Cool. That's great.
I don't know. I just always think that
Well, you should
songs
do
take
it.
care of
You
themselves.
should do it. If you need the lyrics are in this book too. If you
Good,
if
I
you-
need them.
All right. Thank you.
Great.